Good afternoon, everyone. We are starting the event. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear colleagues and friends, I'm pleased to welcome you all here. Thank you for joining on this wonderful Sunday. I'm Susanna Shamakyan, the Vice President of Strategic Programming at Foundation for Armenian Science and Technology, and I have the privilege and responsibility to moderate this event today from Armenia 2020 to Armenia 2041. As you can imagine, moderation is not my full-time job, so I hope I meet your expectations today. Before we embark on the content, just a technical information for everyone. There is simultaneous translation And she is an example of a young woman today working for the future of our country. I actually was 10 when this has started and have witnessed many of these amazing things, and hopefully will witness many more to come. So through sharing these stories, personal stories such as Maria's, today we will try to see what we have achieved in the 20 years and also how we would see the coming 20 years. From this perspective, the stories that Noubar and Ruben and their families and partners are all unique, but at the same time they are very similar, because what unites them is their belief in Armenia and what we can try to achieve for our country. So the main thing is that Noubar and Ruben asked the question, what if? And through that question is that many of these initiatives have been created. So Armenia 2020 was founded in 2001, and it gathered a network of various people, and it was very deliberate that these people were with backgrounds that come from different fields and different geographies and different visions and opinions. But what united them is their belief that we can try to build together a better country. In trying to do so, there was a research conducted on 14 various fields and topics, from science to cultural heritage. And then based on that work, action plans were developed, and the hard work has begun. Obviously, as anything in life, things don't always work the way you plan. You have to reimagine the pathways to reach your goal too. But ultimately, the project has persevered and has tried to achieve many of its targets. And as it started in 2001, when the country was marking 10th anniversary, and in only 2 days we will be marking our 30th anniversary. Many things have been done, but we also know that also many things have to be done to make sure that our kids don't witness what we have witnessed and are still witnessing today. We are not going to go into many details on statistics and program presentations, but we hope that the 700 projects book that you have all got at the Andros will help you with that details. And instead of that, we'll have our beneficiaries of programs to tell what they think, feel, and they have accomplished through the projects, because they are the ultimate beneficiaries and of what the work has been dedicated for. So we have many beneficiaries joining virtually from their own locations, and please meet Khachatur Avetisyan from Gosh Village, Susanna Makarchan from Gyumri, Ilya Lalazarian from Yerevan, Irina Tirosyan from Yerevan, Marat Gerasimyan from Tater, Manana Hakopian from Boston, USA, and Mirza Dinay from Hanover, Germany. So we will start with Khachatur Avetisyan, who is a beneficiary of economic empowerment of youth affected by Nagorno-Karabakh conflict project. He is born in 1992 in North Tarer village of Hadrut region, Artsakh, which is now under Azerbaijani occupation. Having lost everything, his family settled in Gosh village Tavush. Khachatur took part in 44-day war and sustained shrapnel wounds, and he has unfortunately now third-degree disability. Khachatur is now in Stepanakert, and unfortunately his internet connection wasn't very stable, so he recorded a video instead.
Այն ամենից հետո ինչի մեջ շնորհացել So everything that we went through, I am thinking about peace. Every child should grow up under peaceful skies, not see any war. It pains me when I remember how the kids were hungering in our courtyard. I want every person from Artsakh to return to their homes.
Thank you, Khachatur. We will now move to Susanna Makarchan, a professor who is the head of the National Aesthetics Center in Gyumri and an advocate for the preservation of our heritage and culture. When the 1988 earthquake struck her city, she considered one of the most important virtues to establish a center, which at that time was focusing on rehabilitation and support. The center is now aimed at bringing up generation of culturally educated children who will be advocates of the Armenian culture and heritage. Սուսաննա, ինչով եք դուք զբաղվում Գյումրիում, խնդրում եմ մի փոքր պատ։
What is it that we are doing in Gimri, Susanna? Could you expand a little? I'm the founding director of the Aesthetic Center since 78 to this very thousands of children between 3 and 18 years of age have visited our center, got exposed to various forms of art. I am an artist myself, a painter. I teach the students to draw paint. I think that kids, in particular from the Shirak region, are full with art. The only nurturing that I could expose them to is the beauty, is the great art, thanks to which kids come to know, preserve, and love everything that is beautiful. And of course, the most beautiful is our city of Gyumri. Thank you, Susanna.
That this universe is doing in Gyumri will also support the children in Gyumri. Moving from culture to environment, I'm pleased to introduce Ilya, who is a senior student at IPE High School. A year ago, he participated in the Future Leaders program and decided to join the Climate U-Turn team to make a contribution to the development of an eco-sustainable mindset and lifestyle among youth. This experience has inspired him, and he has established an initiative of his own, Rene Musk. Ilya, could you please tell what has Climate U-Turn gave you, and what are you trying to achieve with your new initiative?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. My journey with the IDEA Foundation in Climate U-Turn started in 2020 when I enrolled in Climate U-Turn's Future Leaders program. Thanks to the Impact program, I started to look at the environmental challenges in the world from a new perspective and realized that I want to be a big part of this change that the organization is making. So I joined the Climate U-Turn team, and ever since we've been working really hard to establish high environmental standards in Armenia, starting from raising awareness and educating people, especially young adults, about the issues, to digging deep into the food safety field, to implement standardized food self-control system in our country. Later, inspired by all the work we did at Climate U-Turn, I started my own project called Rene Musk, which is an eco-scientific project. The project addresses two problems we're facing now: the demand for alternative energy resources, and the second is the pollution caused by the everyday usage of medical masks. In terms of Rene Musk, I'm working on a scientific method to mass recycling to turn medical masks into biofuel that can be used in engines and heaters instead of fossil fuels, which we all know harm both the environment and the public health. And finally, at the end, I want to express my admiration and gratitude towards the initiative that has been making a colossal amount of positive change in the country for 20 years now, for helping me and so many others every step of the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilya. I hope you continue with the same enthusiasm as you have started. So from environmental topic to moving to science and technology, I'm pleased to introduce Irina, my colleague, who is a data scientist at Denova Sciences, the first spin-off company at Ascend, Advanced Solutions Center, that FAST Foundation has launched in 2019. Ascend is a multifunctional platform that focuses on incubating science-intensive ventures based on the innovative model co-designed with Flagship Pioneering, a global leader in biotech founded by Noubar Afeyan in Boston. Irina, please let us know what's the nature of work that you do at Denova and what you hope to achieve with your company.
Hello, thanks a lot for having me. So at Denova Sciences, we aim to find new drug candidates by combining AI with biology and chemistry. We found a solution that alleviates the need for experimental data and allows to tackle diseases which have previously been deemed incurable. Basically, our mission is to make those diseases a thing of the past while decreasing the cost and the time level drug development process. We already have some promising achievements, such as successful lab results and several ongoing collaborations. And another part of our mission, and the part that resonates with me the most, is that we want to establish the biotech ecosystem here in Armenia. The plans include establishing the infrastructure, setting up lab space, as well as training highly skilled professionals. We've already done the first steps in this direction, and together with FAST, we've organized AI bootcamp. And now the folks are doing a bootcamp on cheminformatics. a field that is super important yet completely new for Armenia. And I myself joined the Nova Sciences from the first cohort of AI Bootcamp. And way back then, I would not have imagined that I would be working on discovering potential drug candidates. But fast forward 2 years, here I am working on something that I am passionate about.
Thank you, Irina. Pretty exciting. I hope you will help the industry save money and bring in drugs faster than we usually do now. So moving from science to tourism and rural development, I am to introduce you Marat Gerasimyan. He is a former head of Halizor village before the enlargement of rural settlements in 2015. He is a community leader and is currently a key candidate to be elected as the head of the Atef community of 8 villages. He initiated and supported the major refurbishment of the school in Halizor and renovation of kindergarten. Thanks to his personal efforts, libraries of 8 schools of the Atef community were recently enriched. Marat is a key person for engaging the local community in various events organized by the Tourism and Urban Foundation, acting as a liaison for multiple stakeholders to coordinate and empower their programs. I'm going to switch to Armenian. Marat,
Marat, what do you think are the priorities for the development of the Tatev community, and what's the impact of the Tatev project on you and your community? I welcome all participants of this event. In order to have a developed community, I think it's a priority to address children's and young students' educational level. New languages, projects, and technologies should be exposed to them. Since in our community, tourism is developing exponentially, I think, and I believe it is necessary to know how to communicate with the tourists. Another priority of the development of the community is the existence of infrastructure for social protection of the community in order for the community members to improve their sustenance and invest all their energy and resources in creating and pursuing new ideas. I think it's another priority to build hotels, hostels, service businesses, increase the production of local produce. Another issue in the community is the exodus of the population. So if everything I just mentioned is put in place, we will prevent and that will address the biggest priority, and new jobs will be created. As for the Tatev program and the building of the cable car road in the region was, within the last couple of decades, the most salient and positive impact on our communities. Thanks to this project, the Tatev monastic complex was rebuilt, but preserving its architectural design. There has been inter-community roads that have been rebuilt. A number of infrastructure entities have been renovated, schools, etc. Many communities within our region have their own initiatives that also contribute to the emergence of new jobs. The local produce is almost fully consumed within our communities. And after all, thanks to this project, our region has become wider known throughout. Thank you. Thank you, Marat. John?
I would like to speak about a project that has a different impact, which tries to build an international organization in Armenia to try to position the country as an outward-looking country. UWC Dilijan is the first international boarding school in Armenia. Children in the 2 last years of secondary school are accepted on merit and not based on their financial situations. We say that UWC opens Armenia to the world and the world to Armenia. So far, there were 220 students of 80 nationalities studying in a small town, Dilijan, which is now blossoming also including due to the efforts of the school. I'm pleased to introduce Manana Hakopian, who is a graduate of the first cohort, the class of 2016. Her scholarship was supported by the Ameria Bank leadership team, and a graduate of University of California, Berkeley. She is currently studying in Harvard University, doing her master's in data science. Manana, how do you think UWC experience has impacted you, and what do you plan to do after you graduate Harvard?
Hi, Ruben. Thank you for having me here. UWC Diligent experience was life-changing. I'm saying it honestly and genuinely. I'm coming from Norhaj, and you probably have not heard the name of this city, but I didn't imagine ever in my life that I would be able to make it to Berkeley and Harvard, and those were shiny names on pages of newspapers or like internet blogs. But then UWC Diligent happened, and suddenly I started dreaming big, and I started being more ambitious, and I was able to achieve my dreams. And now that you see Berkeley happen in my life and Harvard happen, I'm continuing being more ambitious, and I hope to establish a startup one day and continue being in data science and tech, and probably put Armenia again on the map, building my venture. Thank you.
Thank you, Manana. We wish you good luck and hope you can achieve that. And now we're moving to the last project, but the project that is one of the key initiatives that helped many of us to change paradigms in our perspective, how we see ourselves, and also our journey as Armenians. It really did change my thinking. The Aurora Humanitarian Initiative was founded on behalf of the survivors of the Armenian genocide and in gratitude to their survivors. It instituted the Aurora Prize for Awakening Humanity to empower modern-day survivors to offer life and hope to those in need of basic humanitarian aid anywhere in the world. I'm pleased to introduce Mirza, who is the co-founder and director of the association Luftbrück Iraq, director of the Yazidi Support Fund. Mirza is the 2019 Aurora Prize winner, laureate. He was awarded the prize for his work with victims of the ISIS terrorist group. Mirza, could you please tell us about your work with the Yazidi community, and also why do you think the initiatives such as Aurora are important for organizations such as yours?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you very much for having me in this event. I think the spirit of Aurora Prize is one of the most important message in the world, that humanism and the engagement of human families shouldn't be limited in a border of one country or one nation. This was the message that the founders of Aurora co-founders has established, and it has reached also my people. We say Yazidi were survivors of 72 genocide during the histories, and no one heard the voice of Yazidi people until 2014, as they have been attacked by ISIS, and ISIS committed genocide crimes against Yazidis. And I was one of those people who worked for the Yazidi victims, especially for the women and children. I have a little bit longer history with humanitarian work. I'm working since 25 years as human rights activist and minority rights activist in Iraq. And definitely joining Aurora family through a reception of Aurora Prize, that we have through this prize, with this support, established in Shingal, where the genocide has happened, a special house of coexistence to build an environment of sustainable peace and reconciliation, and find the way that the people were everywhere destroyed, that we are still as victims and grandchildren of victims, that we are still able to build and see the life positive. This is the message of Aurora Prize, and why Aurora Prize is so important to be not limited only in the border of Armenia. We know that those Armenian people who established the prize, they were grandchildren of a genocide that has happened 100 years ago, And now, after 100 years, you find the message of humanism is going from everywhere, Rwanda to Sudan to the Asia, to Iraq. So this is the message that everybody should participate in. This is the reason why important to have such kind of initiatives.
Thank you very much, Mirza, and everyone. I think Mirza's work reminds us all what type of deprivation war can bring to people. And I think this is a good moment to also remind ourselves of all the lives that were lost in Artsakh war and also due to COVID. So I would ask everyone to take a minute of silence and think of them. Thank you. We want to also thank our co-founder of our initiative, Vartan Gregorian, who we unfortunately lost last spring. Vartan Gregorian, who tirelessly promoted human generosity, said, "The cycle of giving which Aurora began, will continue because it is supported by all of you and thousands more around the world. Our gratitude in action does not have a deadline. Remember that." I will repeat again. Our gratitude in action does not have a deadline. I hope each of us can embrace these words without understanding the past and honestly assessing what the present offers, we cannot speak of the future. So some of the highlights that we had in the past have been already discussed, and now this brings us to a discussion on the future. To help me with this, the Armenia 2041 initiative, which was recently established, has collaborated with McKinsey & Co. and created a report that is called Armenia 2021-2041 Ideas in Action. For this, I would like to invite to stage my colleague and partner today in moderation for the second part, political consultant and a host at ＳիվիլՆեթ, Erika Kopyan. I would also like to invite on stage Armen Makarchan, co-initiator of the Future Armenian, a senior principal at Flagship Pioneering, who is a former McKinsey associate partner. And our panelists joining us via Zoom, Andrea Antonian, managing partner of McKinsey Korea and senior partner at McKinsey Seoul, and Michael Janyan, partner at McKinsey Brazil. They will present the executive summary of the report, and then we will also have some time for a couple of questions. Armen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Armen Makarchan, and it's a pleasure to be here to be discussing this project. One thing that I noticed when we were watching those videos was that the very first video that came up, it said September 19, 2005, and it was Andrea Andonian, who is with us on the screen, Noubar Afeyan and Ruben Vardanyan, talking about a McKinsey initiative. So how symbolic it is to be sitting here now, 16 years later, and talking about a McKinsey initiative again, about the future of Armenia. So this initiative that we'll be presenting, I don't think will do justice to the work that has been done. The team has worked over the spring. I think we have generated probably 700 pages of a report for all of us to consume. And today we're going to only have 20 minutes to talk about the report. So we can only give you a very high level overview of what's going to be included in the report. But the work was commissioned by Armenia 2041. As I said, it was conducted earlier this year. I think that the team finished the work approximately in the month of May. And we'd love again to make sure that this is just a starting point on presenting the findings, but that we'll actually work together with all of you in engaging on and leveraging what the McKinsey report has generated for us for the future development of Armenia and the future development of different sectors. With that, I would love to pass it on to my former colleague and our friend Noubar Vardanyan to kick us off.
Yes, thank you very much, Armin, and hello to everyone. It's a pleasure to participate virtually, and I had a glimpse of the hall in Yerevan, so quite a crowd. So thank you for joining. And I would like to start us off and simply build on what Armin said. So I was fortunate to be involved since 2002 with different Armenian initiatives. One important one was Armenia 2020, where we looked at that time at the economy of Armenia. We tried to understand the situation of Armenia and also had some recommendations for sectors, how to increase productivity and allow a brighter future for Armenia. Now, nearly 20 years later, we basically looked back and tried to understand what happened and tried to use those learnings to also see, can we create a brighter future for 2041? And I will now present the findings, and I will start off and will pass on to my colleague Mikhail Janyan and my ex-colleague Armin Mikhatitsyan to focus on specific sectors. And at the end, I will again summarize and focus on the requirements for success if we want to attain the most positive scenario. So going to looking at the charts, and perhaps I think if you could go to the chart, next chart, and I don't know whether it's being shared on the screen because I see myself right now. It's a question. Armin, are you showing a screen or?
Yeah, we are in executive summary, if that's the page that you want to use, Andre.
Exactly, yeah, I use that. Thank you very much. Now I see it, yeah. I mean, I see that you're showing a screen. So on the executive summary, I would say the message is mixed, if I may say that. The good news is we have made progress in Armenia. We have grown 6% per year in terms of GDP annually. And this puts us actually pretty much in the middle of the pack of comparable countries. And if we are very precise, we improve from position number 10 to position number 9. You will see that the growth we created is unfortunately not sustainable because it was mostly based on consumer spending and consumer spending based on loans and public debt. So it's not sustainable. Secondly, we will see that the productivity improvements, they were there, but not, I would say, big enough to make us export country, what we need. And also in terms of investments, be it foreign direct investment or infrastructure investments, that's also something where there is more potential for us to improve. So summarizing, I would say we can be proud of what we have accomplished, but at the same time, there is lots of potential going forward. And we have prioritized 5 sectors just to illustrate how to think about them. And for each sector, we show a vision, what we believe is possible 2041, a framework on how we would look at the sector, enablers for the development, and some suggestions for strategic moves for actions to take. And my colleagues will illustrate that. And at the end, we'll also summarize the success factors required to make this change happen. And as Armin mentioned, these are all suggestions and up for discussion. So we very much welcome comments and especially very much welcome your personal participation, be it in Armenia or in the diaspora, be it in the private sector or the public sector or NGOs. So going to the first chart, that's the next one. Armin, could you please continue? That shows in the last 15 years, the 6% growth that I mentioned. And you see Armenia in the middle. And we pretty much, you see there are some countries that are a bit better, others that were worse. We were better than the global world average. but starting from a lower base. So therefore, the benefits of that are more limited since our starting base was more limited. We see also, if you look at the curve, we had quite an acceleration until 2009 when the global crisis hit us, and it hit us badly compared to the other countries. And we have been recovering since then. And you will see at the later chart that our growth actually declined after that. And it took us some while until we got back on the growth path. Going to the next page, that shows where we are. So we are number 9. And with 13,700 GDP per capita, and that's on purchase power parity. Yeah, so it considers the purchasing power. And here again, I think we are right there with other countries who are comparable to us. But I would argue there are countries that we could aspire to overtake, and they are on the right. And particularly, I would like to stress Lithuania, for instance. Yeah. Going to the next page. In order to improve GDP, our research McKinsey, and we have a special institute called McKinsey Global Institute, shows that it all comes down to productivity improvement. Because at the end of the day, if you are more productive, we are much stronger in terms of exports, we are much more attractive in terms of foreign direct investment, and we are much more potent and capable to create jobs, and actually well-paying jobs, and improve the welfare overall. And if we look now at the productivity and compare it between 2009 and 2019, we see that we have improved from 9.1 billion GDP to 14. It was primarily based on consumer spending, as I mentioned earlier. That's the 3.7. Then we were better on the exports compared to the imports, but again, it was not a big amount. And the government spending and the overall spending investments were actually rather flat, I would say. And therefore, I believe this is not sustainable. So going forward, we have to find other engines of growth. And we have to ensure that we become an export nation, we are attractive for investments, and we improve our labor productivity. Just as an anecdote, the productivity of 2 Armenians compares of 1 Lithuanian. So 1 Lithuanian has the same productivity as 2. And I think, given, I would say, the human resource capabilities and capacities we have in Armenia, I think that's not acceptable. We have to improve on that. Going on the next page, this shows how we looked at the different economic sectors, because we can talk forever on a very high level, macro level. But at the end of the day, the action happens in sectors and even in companies where I think change needs to happen. And here we took 3 lenses. The first lens was looking at export and investment potential opportunities to increase productivity. The second lens is learning from other small economies. And I'm stressing that, so we are not comparing us like, to the leading nations, Germany, US, and so on. Actually, if we beat our peer group, we already make big improvements. And thirdly, and this is something that Noubar especially stressed, and I think we fully embrace that, to look at it future back. So really look at the future, what it could be, and then see what, and the future is defined by the global trends and disruptions that we expect in the sector, and then see what does it mean for Armenia. So we took all 3 lenses and applied it, it's on the next page, to the sectors, and prioritized 5 sectors that we want to illustrate the way we thought about it. And in the following, my colleagues Mikhail and Armin will illustrate. The 5 sectors we selected are agriculture, education, healthcare, high tech, and tourism. So over to Armin and Mikhail.
Thank you, Andre, for this introduction. I will start by covering agriculture. And for each of these sectors, as Andre mentioned, we looked at the fact base, to understand what could be their full potential. Then we looked at what could be the potential levers that could unlock that potential and came up with potential levers for those. In terms of agriculture, the data shows that exports could grow 5 times based on the data that we saw. And that output can grow by improving yields through adoption of new technologies such as no-till production, cover crops, inoculants to fix nitrogen in the soil, and also land utilization. Growing agricultural production would also help achieve food safety and security in critical crops and livestock, considering everything that's going on in the world in terms of climate change and so on. Incredibly enough, Armenia is not fully secure in terms of its food needs. So we believe that growing agricultural output would also not only help reduce the food security, improve food security, but also desperately improve the exports that we need, as Andrea mentioned. If we move to the next page for education. Education plays this dual role in the country. First, the first role is that there are opportunities to improve the GDP contribution by 3 times. And that means, for example, attracting more foreign students into the country so that they can study and learn in Armenia, get educated while consuming and studying in the country. Second, in line with the national priorities, it could help Armenian talent fully develop their full potential. And that will help increase the productivity and competitiveness in certain sectors. As Andrea mentioned, productivity is one of the key factors that helps drive economic growth. So we see education playing this dual role in which it can contribute even more to GDP, right? 3 times as much more. And also on the other side, help improve Armenian productivity and provide the Armenian economy with the skills that it needs to grow. Armen, over to you to cover the other sectors.
Thank you, Mikhail. So I'll start with healthcare. And it's the vision for us for healthcare was pretty simple if you look on the page. It's increasing life expectancy at birth to 80 years from 75, which seems like a simple goal, but just to put it in perspective, countries that have 80 years of life expectancy at birth are, again, some of them are Luxembourg, South Korea, Ireland. So in terms of life expectancy, we'll get in the same area as those other countries. Now, how can we do it? We think it can be done through using or leveraging 2 pillars, right? One is preemptive medicine, and this is about focusing on disease preemption rather than actually treating people who already get sick. It's about, at least in Armenia, it's about fully addressing behavioral risks such as smoking and alcohol usage. It's about ensuring that there is equal access in the regions of Armenia to good primary care to everyone. The other pillar is digitization and high quality care. In a country such as Armenia, being so small, I think we need to fully digitize our healthcare system. We need to have a population level and an individual level data on everyone and their healthcare history. That will help us in tracking, that will help us in figuring out what kind of options to come up with for therapeutics, but also for very early detection. The other is optimizing healthcare talent development. It's talent development, talent deployment. It's relearning, and relearning afterwards, and retraining. The last one is actually trying to drive an end-to-end transformation of the health sector, not just in terms of quality of doctors and nurses, but also in terms of the facilities that are being used, in terms of the equipment that is being used, and also in terms of the procedures that are being implemented. The one last thing I'll mention on this sector is for Armenia, and I think it is in the government's plan if I'm not mistaken, to also increase the rate of insurance within the population. And mandatory insurance might be one of the ways to do it. So let me move on to the next sector, which is the high-tech sector, the one that is very close to my heart. The vision here is actually to increase our exports by 2041 to 10 billion. That's about a 20x increase in the exports from the high-tech sector. This also will mean that we'll likely need to increase our workforce in this sector from about 30,000 to about 130,000. Again, you can see it's not a linear increase, but it also assumes a lot of scale factors that are taken into account, and also a lot of productivity growth that will be taken into account. So what are the main principles of achieving this? One is focusing on productivity growth, as I said, and focusing on productivity growth, but not narrowing down the list of industries that we'll be applying and working in. We can start from telecom, media, and healthcare, all the way to defense and agriculture in terms of the usage of the high-tech tools. The next is in terms of outsourcing, focusing on developing use case specific solutions for different business functions. And we need to be able to target countries that are very large consumers of the outsourced IT products and services. The 6 main ones that make up 40% of the consumption in terms of the IT input will be United States, Ireland, the Netherlands, Germany, France, and Saudi Arabia, as you see on your screen. The most important one, though, is shifting the focus away from low-cost outsourcing model to actually generating additional value. And how can we do that? We can do it by focusing on key technologies and developing it within Armenia. One of them being machine learning, for example. And machine learning especially is an interesting one. For me, especially because I've done work in the past in this specific sector, there are countries, such as Israel, for example, that has machine learning in its national security agenda. So it's part of their agenda to develop machine learning for their security. The other sector is developing AR and VR-based business applications and tools within Armenia. And I actually just saw someone who I know from Armenia that is developing it. Hi, Armenian. Semiconductor sector is another one that we already very good start at, so we should be continuing to develop it. And the last one is cloud computing and cloud services that we should focus on as well. The last sector that I'll talk about is the tourism sector. And again, the vision here is actually to increase our revenue to about 11.5 billion in the next 20 years. And that's about 7 to 8x improvement in the revenue from this sector. What does that also translate to? It translates to about 270,000 people who will be working directly in this sector. It translates to about having 14 million tourists coming to Armenia, which is a tremendous increase if you look at the kind of number of people that we have to accommodate. So how can we do it? We can do it by making Armenia a desirable destination for others. So we can do it in 2 ways. One, we can go to new markets and attract people and tell them about Armenia. Such markets are China, Southeast Asia, Gulf countries, which haven't been the focus in the past, but also we need to continue and develop the countries that already know about Armenia and are traveling to Armenia, right? Such as major European economies, Russia, for example. We need to create world-class travel infrastructure and connectivity. Again, that means more direct flights, which fortunately has been happening in the past, and especially starting a new national carrier will help with that as well. Safe, and again, I repeat, safe and convenient road network that we need to have, which might be an issue these days. And we need larger capacity for hotels, and in fact, not just for hotels. If we actually take 14 million tourist number, there is no way, for example, if all those people have to come through airports, there is no way to accommodate them today logistically through our airport network. So the 2 airports we have, Zvartnot and Chivak, they won't be able to accommodate 14 million passengers or even 10 million passengers if you send 4 million come through land. And the last one is creating unique experiences. We have to leverage what we have. Cultural tourism, ecotourism is growing very fast in Armenia. Religious tourism can be another aspect actually to try to focus on, especially in countries such as Germany, France, UK, and Russia actually, that have said that they are interested in religious tourism in Armenia. And then the last one is adventure tourism, especially for millennials. So these are, again, very high level findings of the report. What I, again, urge all of us to do in the future is to use the full findings of the report and the full takeaways, since each of these segments has probably about 100 pages of data collected and reports generated that we'd love to share with you. We'll try to leverage with you for the development of our country. I'll pass it back on to Andre again.
Yes, thank you very much, Armin. Thank you, Mikhail. So I hope this gave you an illustration how we approach this. And at the end, I would like to summarize the success factors in order to actually build on these insights and put that into reality, make reality out of it. And you're talking here about an advancement journey that needs to take place. And this is based on clear success factors. And 33 years in McKinsey, this is all I've been doing, transforming companies, transforming countries. And I think, as you all know, Armenia is very dear to my heart. So I'm hoping that these 10 factors that we are now going to share also resonate with you, and with your support, we can actually advance Armenia. So the factors are, number one, priorities and outcomes. So we need a direction clearly, and we need to be aligned on that direction. Secondly, we called it here labs. This is basically saying that we have to be very fast in terms of exploring the new way of working, the new moves, quasi in a lab situation, but being very quick in doing that. We need obviously budget for that is realistic, and we can actually use the resources required. We need engagement by the public and collaboration and feedback. So this is nothing that should be happening like in a detached room, in a lab room. These are actually, this only will work if the public embraces and supports. We need a roadmap with realistic milestones. And then we need delivery units, we call it, that in Armenia, and this is one of the challenges that we have actually gathered over the years, and I have actually also experienced myself. We need one single body that has the rights to make the decisions and drive things forward. And in Armenia, it's very, very fragmented. Armin mentioned, for instance, airports. We did like some time back, we wanted to increase the better connections of airlines to Armenia, and it was very complex who had to decide and who decides what and so on. And we have to simply simplify, and we need all the right experts in this one delivery unit. Then, in terms of performance management and problem solving, it has to be clearly output-based with transparent milestones. And we should reward once those, I would say, milestones are reached, so they get more funding, and it should be dependent on those outcomes. Then capability building is very important. Education itself is a sector, but capability building around those initiatives is going to be very important. And then communication is important, to be very transparent, and especially communicating success cases broadly, and this will generate more energy and more appetite, and hopefully further rise aspirations. And last but not least, this is not a one-time effort. Ideally, this should be institutionalized, and we are talking here about the collaboration between the public sector, private sector, NGOs, and personal initiatives. Going to the next page, this is, for instance, as an example, the role the Armenian diaspora could play. And this is something, as you know, a unique strengths we have in Armenia. So we have diasporans who are very close emotionally to Armenia and are willing to help. But I would like to stress, you see, one of the points is philanthropy. It's on the national level, but it's just one of the things. So philanthropy alone will not help. And there are many other ways that diasporans can help. And you see her on the international level, making sure that interests are being protected with international organizations, scholarships, connectivity, international promotion. On a national level, foreign direct investment, diaspora bonds, and engagement in policies. And on an individual level, multiple initiatives. You see here also examples from other countries where this is being done. And you see in those countries, developing and developed countries. And these are all, I would say, proven recipes that we can apply to establish that connection. On the next chart, this shows the initiatives of the prioritized sectors that we have developed and the leadership role of government, of the private sector, of NGOs, and of the diaspora. And you can see this has to be a collaboration. And for certain initiatives, it's like 2 of them, sometimes 3, sometimes 4. If I give an example, I'm building on what just Armin said, for instance, on tourism, if you see here, create unique adventure experiences, this is something the private sector can do. But on the other hand, if you think about become a desirable destination for Chinese and tourists, here I think the support of the government is also required to get there. And continue as we are doing it, probably we will only end up at the lower line, which is the 22 billion, which is 4% per annum. And our hope is that through implementing and building on the suggestions and recommendations we have, we get actually to the 40 billion. I will stop here and we are very happy to answer questions.
I think we have 7 minutes for the questions, so we'll ask 1 or 2.
Yeah, well, thank you for this wonderful presentation. And these are very serious, serious topics, so I think we should start with a bit of humor. I noticed that one of your recommendations was for Armenians to drink less and smoke less, which tells me you're not only visionaries, you guys are probably a little bit crazy if you think that's going to happen. But let's move on to moderation.
Eric, I can respond to that. I just came from a 3.5 hours run before this. And I tell you.
Now let's move on to what is likely the 800-pound gorilla in the room. The primary issues that we're facing right now are security related. Since the end of the war, there's been very clear consensus in this country across the board about the need to upgrade defense systems, specifically to build our own military industrial complex. And we all know things are working out on different levels on that. This was obviously not mentioned in your report. Maybe it wasn't part of your mandate, but it's very hard in today's environment to have a meeting like this without bringing that up. Can you respond to that?
Yeah, very good observation, Eric. So security defense was not part of the McKinsey's work. It was not part of the scope of their work for various reasons. But in Armenia 2041, we are actively working on those specific questions as well. But again, wasn't part of the work, so it didn't get presented today.
Thank you, colleagues, for the presentation. I would want to ask a question regarding the development of human capital. So many of the things that you have described will obviously need to educate a lot of and train a lot of people. My question would be, do we have actually enough population that could be trained within this 20 years to serve all these targets that you have been mentioning? Or do you potentially anticipate, inflow of foreign expertise to Armenia, and if so, to what scale? I don't know which one of you would respond.
Yes, I think I'll start, and I would ask Mikhail and Armin to contribute. I think first of all, we need to reverse the migration trend, because we have been losing actually some human resources. So I think that's the very first step. Secondly, I think we have to differentiate between sector-specific I would say 3 types of skills. One is sector-specific. The other one is, general management leadership skills. And the third one is simply in general, the education level. And for all 3, there are different initiatives required. And I really think, given, I would say, the legacy we have as Armenians, where education has been always important and always there has been emphasis on that, I personally think we can actually accomplish this with, I would say, with a targeted effort. And lastly, I think hopefully will become an attractive destination for talent. So we can attract talent. And I'm stressing now non-Armenian talent globally to be part of this. But perhaps over to Mikhail and to Armin.
One other thing, thank you, Andre. One other thing out there is even when we look at the different sectoral analysis that we just showed, there is almost a migration of people from one sector to another, for example, as well. So if we take agriculture, for example, at least the projection is that in 2041, right, we'll actually be generating a lot more output, but with a lot fewer people. So there's going to be a question actually of retraining the people who are not going to be involved in the workforce because of the productivity growth. Fewer people will be able to do the work, but we can actually help retrain them to go work in a different sector, for example. And that's another way actually to balance, I think, the needs of the different sectors that we'll have.
Thank you. Well, hopefully automation will help us with that. And I think we'll have the last question.
Well, obviously, if you look at from the beginning of this presentation, there was, Armenia 2020, which is sort of the genesis to this. In some ways, this is the second bite at the apple. You can say that Armenia 2020 didn't hit the goals, partly because the state, a good part of the state, wasn't interested in the type of projects that would make us be a different kind of country, because there were people in power who were not particularly interested in that. But now, if you look at your report, it's obvious that you need partners in state capacity. So many of these things can happen on their own, but if you have competent state structures, they become far more realistic goals. Given the realities of our state sector in its totality, in which the competence level is not consistent, in some places it's decent, some places it's very poor, in your presentation, in your thinking, did you come up with variations of what it means to have different levels of competence and what's realistic working with our state sector in achieving some of these goals?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I think the big difference, I would say, the learning we have now versus when we're doing 2020, Armenia 2020, it's not enough to just have a vision and also just have, ideas on paper, but really focus on the implementation part that involves the collaboration with relevant stakeholders. And for that, there are, I would say, depending on the sector, different ideas we have. I think on high tech and anything that requires, for instance, artificial intelligence was earlier mentioned. There is this Foundation for Armenian Science and Technology. That one, I think, has very innovative and creative approaches there. And I'm personally involved as the chairman of the Board of Governors there with Ruben, Noubar, and others. So this hopefully will create a basis that it will be easier for the government and for the public sector to collaborate, because it creates a real win-win type of situation. And I think we have to look at each of those sector initiatives and see what would be, as you're saying, Eric, minimum involvement required, what would be ideal involvement required, and then hopefully, set the right or create the right platform for support. And here, if I may say another personal statement, we have an advantage in Armenia of being a quote unquote a smaller country. So it shouldn't be that difficult to align stakeholders in a smaller setting. And even the GDP now with 14 billion, if you compare it with other countries or even other companies, it's on the smaller side. So the complexity, I think we can reduce complexity with the right measures and initiatives. And I think at the end, I would also say it's what is the public sector? The public sector is actually, it represents the interest of all of us individually. So if you individually, I think, make the right steps, make the right communications, then I think it will be very difficult not to do the right steps. So that will be my opinion, and maybe perhaps too optimistic.
And if I may add, Eric, not based on the work that we have done with our McKinsey colleagues, but just from the perspective of Armenia 2041 initiative, I think there is tremendous openness to align and to coordinate on the development of talent for the public sector and for the government.
Thank you, Armin, Andre, Michael, for joining from where you are. I think we're done with this session, and I'm sure who participate here will approach you, Armin, later on for further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In the meantime, we will watch a short video which has an aspiration to show some of the projects that could be done in the future to realize all this.
Yes, Arkistan.
Yes, Narana.
Yes, Tigranem.
Yes, Arinanam.
Yes, Rubenam.
Yes, Yunanam.
Yes, Soratam.
Yes, Elanam. 17 տարեկան, Armatներով Artsakh.
I'm 17 from Artsakh, city of Ararat. I'm from Yerevan. I live in Osterland. I'm from Italy. I'm in the USA. I live and work in Yerevan. I'm a graphic designer. I'm in an IT company, a software engineer. I'm a musician and a pedagogue. I'm a scientist. I'm a postgraduate student at Yerevan State University. I'm a director and a blogger. I'm an engineer. I'm a school student, 11th grade. I believe Future Armenia has a great and important role for Armenia's future. Since I believe that it's about time to join forces, build our future with our own hands. They say history is created not by the passive majority, but by the active minority. I call upon all those who see this video to join this initiative and movement, futurearmenian.com. Okay.
Thank you. And this leads us to the last part of this event. And I'm pleased to welcome Noubar Afeyan joining us virtually from USA and invite Ruben Vardanyan on the stage. I will briefly introduce our distinguished speakers and then we will move to the discussion phase. So co-initiator of the Future Armenian, co-founder of Aurora Humanitarian Initiative, Lebanese-born American-Canadian, Dr. Noubar Afeyan is based in Boston already for many years. Noubar has been at the forefront of finding solutions to COVID-19. Dr. Afeyan is a co-founder of Moderna, a company I'm pretty sure everyone knows here. It is impressive to witness what Dr. Afeyan and Moderna have achieved scientifically by producing a high effective vaccine. Despite this, together with his wife, Anna Afeyan, he is involved in a number of philanthropic initiatives in USA and Armenia. And moving to Ruben Vardanyan, he is a co-initiator again of the Future Armenian, co-founder of Aurora Humanitarian Initiative, an Armenian-Russian social entrepreneur, impact investor, and venture philanthropist. He is a founder of a number of companies and social ventures. He is intimately involved in a number of pioneering initiatives in many countries of the world and specifically in Armenia. Together with his spouse, Veronica Zonabend, and partners in various countries, he invested in large-scale, multifaceted projects in different spheres. Among these projects are Aurora Prize, the Foundation for Armenian Science and Technology, Skolkovo Business School in Russia, and UWC Dilijan in Armenia, programs for tourism and urban development, as well as the preservation of cultural and historical heritage in Armenia and abroad. Welcome, Noubar and Ruben, and I'm sure the audience will be eager to ask various questions. So me and Eric will ask you several questions, and then we will have 4 questions from the audience, and our volunteers will help you with that, and also a couple of questions coming online. Eric?
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for both of you for joining us. We're nearing the 1-year anniversary of the start of the war in a couple of days. I think all of us can agree that this is a time of self-reflection, and brutal honesty. And one of the things that I believe is that the primary feature of a third world country is not income, it is the fact that one generation betrays the next. When I look at the events of last year, and I try to self-reflect on it, it's fair to say that I think I betrayed those more than 4,000 people that are no longer with us, mostly very young men. I think they were betrayed by me because I wasn't active enough, I wasn't loud enough. They were betrayed by their commanders who weren't worthy of leading them. They were betrayed by a diaspora that treats this country like Disneyland. They were betrayed by political leaders that were either too corrupt or too incompetent over the last 30 years. It's fair to say that almost everything that you have done in your projects are really, at its base, an attempt not to betray the next generation. We have failed this one time, universally failed. What do we do not to betray the next generation?
I don't know, Noubar, do you want to start or I will start? How you want to go, Noubar? Hi. Hi, everyone.
Go ahead. Good afternoon. Go ahead, Ruben. I'll follow.
Yeah. First of all, I want to welcome everyone, and I'm very happy to be here with our other co-founders of our initiative, with David Tavadyan, Aram Berchan, and Artur Alaverjan, and I hope Richard Azania with us in online. I want to welcome also our friends and guests who is here to Sunday decided to come and listen. I'm so happy with also Minister of Economy is here. I would say it's a big difference with the 20 years ago when it was nobody basically ever. We've been ignored by what we've been doing, and I'm happy to see political parties here also, which showing at least we made some progress, at least somewhere, at least a little bit, in 20 years time we achieve something, but people want to come and listen to what we discussed and what we did in 20 years time. What you asked, Eric, I think is very important. And you remember our 15 points. One of the points which we made in number 15, we need to get out of the myths and illusions and talk about what is real. And one thing which we've been unfortunately try to escape always about talking about true and real numbers, not about illusions and dreams. And this is one of the key problems, which is why, if you remember, I made my speech in October 5th. It was very tough for me to talk about something which I knew is coming. And I knew I'm not involved in decision-making process. I'm a business person. But I said, what I can do, how I can stop what already was clear. And it's destroy with illusions and myths was in our society unbelievable. It's one, if you look at our 15 points, one is the key point, is get out of myths and illusions. Talk about real picture, not about something which we're dreaming. The second, I will say, honestly, is also, I think, it's engaging people, because we have a unique moment now, in my view. We've been living in mediocre development for the last 27 years. And 3 years, the revolution happened, and it was big emotional, positive attitude, and we got something which people hope will become big changes. Now we're in a deep crisis. We have a serious time for decision-making process. I believe if we will not use this moment for really make changes, we are done. This is why we started the Future Armenia. This is why I became the Armenian citizen. So I thought it would be critical for me, with my colleagues and friends and partners, to spend so much time talking about how to make engagement of the people. That's why we got 107,000 people. I believe indifference, apathy, and not building about the future will be killing Armenian nation. And this is one will be danger element of the time. At the same time, it's the best opportunity for us to make a change. So I believe we have a unique momentum of doing something today compared to what was done a year ago.
Eric, maybe I will also add some comments. First, thanks everybody for being assembled, and sorry that I'm not able to be in Yerevan. I think your comments are spot on. It's a very painful moment for all of us. And I would distill down the source of our collective betrayal into two things. One is that I think as a people, we have become non-believers. And what I mean by non-believers is not from the point of view of our faith. That's a different matter. But we have become non-believers in our future. We are believers in our past, and we are believers in those who are supposed to come and help us when we need them in the present. But we don't believe in our future. I don't think we believe that we can actually, as a nation, change and compete and win. And the last 20 years, we attempted, thinking that's the only place where we can make a difference, because we're not physically there, many of us, to create an awareness and a belief in the year 2020 as a destination for a more attractive country, a more prosperous, secure, sustainable country. But when I look back at that period, where we failed grossly is to create believers. Because The indifference Ruben is talking about, in my view, has to do with the fact that we simply seem not to believe and therefore not to care. And then the second thing, I think, a related thing, is that we seem to be continuously trapped in a survivor mentality. You know, we are continuously talking about the genocide and the injustice, and that has trapped us to remain survivors. And survivors live in the moment. They struggle and they survive. You know, carpe diem, this is what we're gonna fight for. This is just enjoy the moment, live the moment. Look how lucky you are, you're surviving. And I think what people don't realize is that at the limit of survival is not thriving. At the limit of survival is just survival. If you survive and you're poor, you will survive poor. Nothing about survival ensures any progress, any transformation. It's an altogether different force and a different level of sacrifice to create a future. And so I too, Eric, shared the sense of deep, deep betrayal and disappointment, but having to do with our inability as a nation to believe collectively in our future. That's where I think the biggest problem is. And we can discuss who is responsible and who can even change, whether it takes a church, a government, international institutions, philanthropists, musicians, artists. I don't know who it takes. I think it's going to take all of us to begin to build the future we want, not to be trapped in the present or the past.
Thank you, Noubar. I would want to continue the thought, and because of all the things that you are mentioning, I think it's important to highlight that we have heard, let's say today, a report, a very interesting report of what can be done and should be done where Armenia has potential. And I'm sure many of us in the audience have heard at least several other reports about, potential of Armenia. And let's imagine that we have everyone, the government and key donor organization agreeing that this has to be done. Given the demotivation, given that people don't really think future, do you think the nation will follow? Do you think the people will take ownership? There's a joke that they say in medical sphere, if the patient doesn't want to leave, the doctors are powerless. So the question here, let's say even everyone agrees on this agenda, do you think people will own this, will go through this process?
Ruben, if you want, I can jump in first. You can go second on that one.
Yes, please, Noubar.
Hoping you can hear me. I mean, look, what's our alternative? We ran the other experiment for the last 20 years. And here's where we are. We didn't believe in the year 2020, and the year 2020 didn't believe in us. Are we going to believe in the year 2041, or do we want the same thing? I think that we can do a lot of the things that we're promising collectively. I don't mean us promising to the country, but the promise that is in the plans. But let me say one other maybe provocative thing. Look, you could think of this as emigration, right? So if people were satisfied with what they have, they wouldn't think of emigrating. And we have faced a challenge of immigration for quite a long time, and I'm afraid it continues and it may grow. Why is that? Because people are willing to take the risk, the disruption, the discomfort of going to someplace completely different, start all over again, hoping that that future is better than the future that they are stuck in. But what if these future projects created a country for people in Armenia to emigrate to? Just Armenia. In other words, the fact that people want change is demonstrated by their act, but nobody is giving them a mechanism to make the change in their own country. So I've tried to convince people unsuccessfully that you can either emigrate in space or you can emigrate in time. You can either build the place you want to live in, or you can escape and go play somewhere where you think that exists. And either way, I would simply say that the evidence is there that people want change. This notion that the status quo will magically result in a better country is, that experiment's been run. It's been 30 years. Let's take note of the fact that we're still independent, but let's not assume that that experiment is going to take us to any promised land.
I just want to add one point. I think this conflict and the war and the pandemic crisis push us in a corner to make blind choice. Are you in or you out? And I believe, by the way, the people who's in the room is confirming what I believe is right, but many of us who've been not thinking about to make the choice, made their own choice to come here to help Armenia and Armenian nation because of the crisis. And yes, you're right. So we have 60% people are indifferent. I would say if you're looking at the survey, we just finished a new survey about what's happening in Armenia. 70% is okay about the situation today. Can you imagine 70% people feeling okay about how it's why we don't see the emergency or urgency of the situation. But and 30% people more or less give up, and they said we want to leave. We're not here. We want to give. Don't believe future of Armenia. We don't believe. But what history confirmed many times, and including our cases, when we started Tatev monastery renovation project, and we started Tatev cable car building, it was less than 1% people inside of our team who believed we can achieve something. And I remember that it was not McKinsey, other consultants company, made their research about how many clients will come and will use the Tatev ropeway. And they told us, okay, now it's a 4,000 tourists, it will be 5 times more, it will be 20,000, it will never cover your expenses. I mean, we got 150,000 people came to the use of the Tatev cable car, everybody was shocked. I'm saying, I got this crazy small group of people who can really make changes, and I believe this is unique time of getting there, really. And here in the room, David Tavadjan from Canada, Arma Voskirchan from Philips, who stepped down from Philips and came to work here to run the healthcare platform. The Arman Jelavian from Moscow. You can go by name, Armen Orjan from LA. Ran Babasyan with 11 families who already, 11 people who moved from Russia to Dilijan. I can see small but very critical group of people who said, you know what, we'll not give up. We'll not give up and we'll fight. And by the way, I want to say, with all my respect to McKinsey work, what they've done, I don't buy 10% growth, it's not enough. It's too small. We can grow 15% and more, I believe, heavily, because we're so small and so low base started. So our ambitions and our angerness about what has happened with us, I think giving us chance to make the changes much more dramatic and much better. But it will be small group of people, and to fight against indifference, to fight against this behavior where you give up and you don't want anything. And by the way, we just need to realize, when you're getting $2 billion in Armenia by assistance from the families, it's a welfare system. With people living here, 70% happy, it's a welfare. It's a welfare where people don't want to do anything because they're getting their money without doing anything. So we need to change the system, we need to change attitude, but it needs to start from small group of crazy people who decided for some reasons to give their time, dedicate their time to change this. It's only, I believe, can be done.
Let's see if this works. Okay. Your effort is part of the Future Armenians program. So I'm going to reach back and sort of ask a question on behalf of the real future Armenian. Let's imagine a 10-year-old boy in a little village in Tavush and a 12-year-old girl in Kanaker in Yerevan. They wouldn't know about this meeting, if we did this 5 times more. But ultimately, they are the future Armenian, and everything that you're doing is actually for, especially the kids that don't have the privileges the wealthier kids have. What is it in your programs that you have done in the past? And more importantly, what is it in the programs that you're looking to do in the future that can qualitatively help that 10-year-old become a robotic expert rather than someone driving a tractor, or the same thing for the girl? What do we do? What is it in your programs that is targeting the least of us and giving them a better future?
I don't know, Noubar. I'll go first and you follow. Okay. You know, we opened school in Dilijan. It was a crazy project. Kids from around the world came to Dilijan. In Dilijan is 12,000 people. Now is with the other villages, 18,000 people living together. Not only the school operate and many kids from around the world coming and learning about Armenia. But you know what's happened in Dilijan? It's an interesting statistic, Eric. 12 kids was accepted by top international schools from Dilijan. It's a ratio which you will never get any chance if we will not see the something which we didn't see before. And my strong belief, and this is not nothing, no special privilege, no such, they just did because they saw it, something which other kids didn't see. So I believe that bringing the best standard, bringing the best examples, which we can, by the way, we have a huge competitive advantage, which we are not using at all. As a people around the world, like Nubar Afeyan, who is running McKinsey South Asia and being head of Japan in the last 10 years. Again, it's amazing, yeah, to have that person who can really bring this knowledge, or the Arda Darzi, or I was yesterday in Moscow, 2 days ago in Moscow, Bhagat Alikyan, head of the medical doctor, professor, celebrated 70th anniversary, one of the top cardiology surgery guy in Russia. And it's just bringing them and bring them like mentors, like teachers, bring them like was done in Joseph Orbeli when he invited Victor Ambartsumyan here to come and operate and start this observatory for astronomic research. Establishing the schools, establishing the leadership schools where you can lead by examples and bring by example and give opportunity access to the right people with wisdom. It's the only solution. And I don't see any other solution because without taking on, you know what Lee Kuan Yew did with Singapore when he became the prime minister? In the first 10 years, he sent 50% of the population in age between 18 to 45 by some way to Japan, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, and the United States just to show the different standards, to show them what they need to compare. Because if you don't see the Mercedes, and you never drive your Mercedes in your life, you cannot understand the difference between the Zhiguli and Mercedes, because for you, they're all the car, and the same, more or less. It's like bringing standards, bringing leadership, and sending people out of the country to see their other opportunities will be key for these kids. Especially with online now, they have a lot of chance to do it much cheaper, much easier, much better. Of course, we can easily mix it online and offline. This is how I see it. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, Eric, let me just answer it from a different standpoint, because your invitation to say, what can we do for these people, is something that's been attempted to address for quite a long time. And one of the things I think we have to realize is that the specific challenge of, for example, fighting inequality and access, or upgrading our education significantly, or creating job opportunities in science, technology, each of these things in and of itself, I think will not sustainably create the future we want. All of them together will. And that's the problem we face, because there are a number of band-aid solutions we can use. For example, create a new school for specially gifted students who are underprivileged. And that's really important, and we should do that. But that in and of itself assumes a country with healthcare, a country with prosperity, enough resources to defend itself, and all the other things. So I think the reason we set forth a number of vectors in trying to describe and drive a consensus discussion around our future is that I'm afraid that just fixing the particular issue isn't enough. We have to create a systemic change. And I know well that, Armenians are generally, because of our long history, a highly skeptical group. We are very skeptical, especially about what other Armenians say or do. But we're also skeptical that we'll ever be able to do these big systemic things. And yet, historically, we have defied, despite our size, the expectations of the world in leading in many areas for hundreds of years, and we keep wanting to go back there, but we don't realize that at those times they actually believed that they could make systemic advances. So I believe we need to kind of enter an era where we think about how any of these programs can work together to create a sustainable change. And that's where we have to come back to say, this is an obligation of a properly functioning government. This is the obligation of a diaspora that in fact shatters the image of a Disneyland and recognizes that its responsibility, not its opportunity, but its responsibility, if they want to call themselves Armenian, is to engage in this existential struggle and not to assume that that's not their business because they live somewhere else. If we can't bring all these things together, and we can, in my view, the difference between us doing it and not starts with our belief that we can do it. And so despite our skepticism, we have to suspend our skepticism to be able to fight the disease that was mentioned earlier. So I think we can help the young folks you're talking about, but I just want to point out that if it's done as a point solution, it will not last.
Thank you, Noubar, for your perspective. And I think this leads me to the last question that we will ask, and then we will move to the audience. I would want us to speak about the Armenians of Armenia, Hayastansi terming, and the diaspora in Armenians. I think this is one of the topics that we usually don't want to discuss, but it's also something that also defines many of the things that happen and don't happen. What is it that these last 30 years, we Armenians in Armenia and diaspora in Armenians have been doing wrong? Because inevitably we have been doing something wrong, given that, you know, with all these resources we have, there are only few small oases of things that are being done in collaboration. What is it that systemically both ends have been doing, and why do we even speak in those two dimensions at all that should be changed? And if they don't change, you know, all of these things that we are discussing will be very, very hard to accomplish.
Ruben, you want me to try that first?
Okay, I'm happy to do it.
Okay, I'll keep my comments short because I've gone on long. I believe that there are diaspora Armenians, there are Armenians, and then there's future Armenians. And we have to make a choice. We have described before that there's this expression Armenian by choice that has been used in the diaspora for those who marry Armenians. But I actually have also said, and have been criticized happily, that all Armenians should become Armenians by choice. And my definition of the word Armenian in that context is devoted to building the future of Armenia. And if we can all become Armenians by choice of that kind, then we'll be future Armenians. And everybody has the same right to then have a say about that future, which the 5-year-olds today have no say in because they're unable to shape that future. So I do think that the diasporan organizations collectively bear a massive responsibility for what's happened. And I hope that they are not afraid of questioning their very existence and changing their devotion to the future as opposed to preservation only.
I think Noubar said great. I don't want to go the past and analyze what we did wrong. We did too many things wrong, and it was partially objectively because, for example, we got independence without serious preparing to get the independent country running elite. And this was one of the challenges because the Soviet Union collapsed. Yes, we had the Karabakh movement, we had the people who start to fight for independence, but it was not prepared to what we will do with the Soviet heritage, how we'll handle all this infrastructure, hard and soft, which we got from empire. Look, it's a joke, but we continue a union of composer in Armenia. We have a union of something which it was part of Soviet system, and we continue holding it because it's a historical heritage. We didn't have an elite who come together and said, okay, what will be our vision about the future of Armenia? It was the blockade, it was the war, it was really tough time, but we really missed the opportunity to start to build the country from right angle. And I think because the war was won by local Armenians, they said, sorry, diaspora, you can help us, but we know what we're doing. We have a right to run the country how we want it, and don't bother us or give us advice if we ask you, but don't try to run together. And diaspora was also very happy not to do it, because it was easier to give advice and do some charity and help without being responsible for the Armenian. You know, it's funny to see how my non-Armenian friends jealous about Armenian network. Okay, they said, oh my goodness, you're so strong, you're so well organized, you're so well connected, and you're so helping each other. And on one hand, I said, it's joke, we are joking. But on the other hand, I'm looking at other nations, I would say it's true. We are much better compared to many other, I don't compare us with Jewish, but I'm just saying for many other nationalities, we're really uniquely connected. And our Noubar cases, it was a very good example how with Noubar Afeyan and Pierre, we used and started this program of Armenia 2020 without knowing each other. I just called McKinsey partner, which I knew, Miko Bermeyer. I said, Miki, do you know any Armenian partners? He said, yes, I know 2 Armenian partners by name, Noubar Afeyan in Germany and Pierre Gurjan in Belgium. And I called him and said, you know, my name is Ruben Vardanyan. I want to talk to you about Armenia. He said, yes, okay, I've never been in Armenia, but let's talk about Armenia. Okay, it was really showing how well we can use this network if we want it. The question, do we want it or not? And I think one of the challenges and the same opportunities that we are facing now, the crisis, I think equally strong in Armenia and in diaspora. We have a disaster in the Spurk now, and without doing anything dramatically in the Spurk, it's not illusion anymore. Oh, Spurk will come and help us. It's both sides needs to be helping each other to reestablish everything that was before looked like worked well. I'm a strong believer we have a unique opportunity to give towards this new model of the network institution cooperation, not ignoring each other like it's happening now, or not fighting like happening with the ISIS or terrorist organization or the Trump Twitter story, but really cooperating network and institution. It's not easy, nobody really ready for this, but at the same time, we are best because of the size, because of the historical experience, we can do it. I think it will be interesting experiment if we can do it for others and for our own interest.
Thank you, Ruben. And Noubar, I really love the idea of future Armenian. That means we all have to change the paradigm of how we identify ourselves. And I think it's an important exercise to do. We are now going to move to the questions from audience. While you raise your hands and the volunteers approach you, I'll read the online questions. So we have a question from Arzuman Harutunyan. And he asks, does the program have a conceptual implementation strategy for the change of public consciousness in Armenia? And how can we participate in the implementation? Who wants to take it?
Okay. It's a very interesting exercise we are getting again and again. With Noubar, I think last 20 years, every time we meet, you say, when you finally will start do something, where is your project? Where is your implementation? Why are you talking so much? Why are there so many discussions? Why are you not doing something for Armenia? And I said, what? I thought we were doing something. We did this project, this project. I said, no. Where is the implementation program? I said, what do you mean about the implementation? How you will take the power? Why it's about this? Why you're not accounting what we've been doing, trying to change the mindset, really making the project is like examples. No. It's all forget it. When and how you will take the power? So, you know, guys, if we talk about this implementation, it's a different story to talk about because it's not about what we are doing. The second problem also about implementation is like, I'm sorry to use this, I hope you forgive me, is Armenians is, I saw it many times, when you want to start a house, building house, in the evening we decide to build a house, in the morning we start to build a house without the project, without any materials, without doing the preparation. We just decide because we will want to build the house. And they say, why you declare about future Armenia in April, now is August and you did nothing. He said, but I'm sorry, we're preparing the plan, project like school in Dilijan. We put the first tree in Dilijan school in 2010. And I remember in 2012, everybody said, oh, it was again, it's fake, nothing they're doing. We've been 2 years preparing the project. We went to 45 schools around the world. We tried to learn how to make the best school. We've been preparation from idea to implementation. It took us 2 years to make the normal working plans and working projects. And 2012, we started construction, 2014 was finished. But these first 2 years, I remember every month people say, oh, again, this is one of the promising but never be delivered. So I will say first about implementation. Yes, and the third element, people want to say, from us, will come and say, do this, do this, do this. No, no, no. We're saying, let's do it together. Let's think together, and you will not just say, oh, I have a great idea to have a leadership school, but I don't know how to do it. No, no, let's think together and let's try to implement together. Because we cannot do everything ourselves. We need to do it together, and you will pick up on your responsibility. It will be part of your responsibility to do it. And this is a three elements that I really always been amazed by how easily Armenians asking about this implementation, because we are very, like Noubar said, that we are very concrete nation. We want to touch it. We want to see it. It's a unique combination. We're very concrete. We want to see the result immediately, and we do it why we don't like buy the shares. We want to buy real estate. So Armenia is so strong buying real estate. And at the same time, we're dreaming about something which is unacceptably crazy. This is a combination of two elements which makes me always surprised how we can combine these two things together, but this is who we are. And I want to say, yes, we're doing implementation plan. Yes, we're doing together with many people. Many of you already involved, and we're doing projects which will be going from the concrete areas, from the implementation of some ideas and the platforms that we discuss, or some you do yourself. But don't expect it will become immediately. It will take time, and we need to be very well prepared.
Thank you, Ruben. We'll take the question from the audience. Gentleman in the middle, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mofsas. I'm the representative of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Armenia in Australia. And my question is the following, again, regarding a bit on the execution side, is for us with Australia team within the borders of Future Armenian also, we had a few discussions. I moderated discussions. The diaspora in Australia is very eager to participate in this. We've managed to also engage Australians that are very interested and are very skillful. They are some of the top in their fields. And my question is, we've been being specific with Australia, right? Me personally have been involved with the members of the Australian Armenian community in trying to develop Armenia, bringing the experience, knowledge, bringing investments to Armenia. How can we as an association in Australia, as Australian diaspora, be linked and share our experience with the Future Armenian team to tell them that we've been doing this and this, we've experienced this, and we have ideas? As you said, the execution is also supposed to come from us. So if we have the ideas, whom should we approach? Whom should we talk to? How is this going to be? Is there any timeline that starting from this month of this year, you will be open for discussions? That's my question. Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe I will very briefly answer. Again, we're planning in September now. We're trying to close the page of previous 20 years have been done by Noubar and myself and our families. But now we have a bigger group of people who've been doing many projects already together, and we're trying to really extend this opportunity to engage and work more collegially with more people, because this is one of our goals, which we believe is very critical. Next 4 or 3 months, we'll do a lot of discussions in all 15 directions. We already have some ideas and projects which some of us want to do it. We're in a serious discussion about how we see Armenia 2041, like organization, what will be corporate governance of this organization, how it will be, what will mandate we want to have. Because Armenia 2041 is not the same as Future Armenian. Future Armenian is a movement. It can be everybody. It's 155,000 people. Want to get 500,000 people to be engaged and involved in discussion. But Armenia 2041 will be a foundation which will be operate in some areas, but we cannot cover everything. This is why we hope in doing this discussion, we already got around 1,000 experts in different areas, which can be used for different areas. And I will suggest 3 things. First, let's sit with Armand Gerasimyan sitting in the next row. You can talk with him. about what is your area of interest. For example, we have a serious issue about natural resources. Armenia is facing, we talk about tourism, but we don't answer the question. We want to have a tourism and we want to have a natural resource, how we will develop all this mining business in Armenia. Okay, we're talking about agriculture. We didn't talk about the standards. We have a continual falsification of the cognac, our most proud product in agriculture, and nobody doing, in the program of government, was nothing to say about what we finally stop this fake cognac will be delivered from Armenia to the, there was nothing was said, okay? And this is what we're accepting the wine and other standards will continue to come. That's why you can bring some other example of the standards which Australia put in and how you will manage this. That's why I think it will be important to talk about tourism, agriculture, mining, whatever you see your area of interest and what you will do. The third element, you got the Armenian government program. By the way, how many of you read about the Armenian government program? How many of you saw it? Okay, good. I won't say just to maybe Ministry of Instinct. We just did survey 2 days ago. 70% never heard about the Armenian program of government, okay? 70% in Armenia, not talking about this survey done. An Armenian government program is quite interesting, a lot of good ideas, a lot of instinct about implementation, and I think that analyze and see where you can cooperate, how it can be done, what can be done together will be very important.
Thank you, Ruben. Lady, yes, please. Please introduce yourself. And
Noubar, you want to say something?
Brief and can you help with the microphone? Who has the microphone? Oh, let's move to okay. You go ahead with your question and then we will pass the microphone.
Thank you. First of all, I'm very thankful for the encouraging and empathetic perspectives you shared about the future of Armenia. My question would be...
Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. I'm Sona Natsakanyan. I'm a co-founder and the CEO of Civit. It's a technology company. I'm also a co-founder of Support Our Heroes NGO in Armenia. My question is about technology, actually. The report that was shared with the audience has emphasized that there are 5 main sectors that will contribute to the economic growth of Armenia going forward. And technology was missing there. Technology and science actually was missing there. And I'm wondering whether you're looking at science as an enabler of all those 5 areas and sectors, or science would be a separate sector that would be attractive and profitable enough to attract more capital and be maybe as one of the leading industries in the economy of Armenia and lead it actually. So I'm wondering what is your opinion about it, since you're so much involved in science like Noubar and Vardan as well, especially Noubar and his company. I'm wondering, what do you think about the role of science in the growth of the economy of Armenia going forward? Thank you.
Noubar.
Sure. Well, look, first of all, definitely science is going to influence many of these sectors, and thinking about science as a sector in and of itself is often thought of in the university innovation ecosystem. And that's something that FAST, the Foundation for Armenian Science Technology, that we've developed over the last few years, is very, very much active and interested in is, can we create a startup industry that is based on the advancements of science and technology happening in the world, not just in Armenia, but through the expertise that we can have in Armenia and diaspora to begin to implement products from those scientific advances in Armenia or in partnerships, partly in Armenia, partly elsewhere. So I think the science per se as a sector is an educational sector on the one hand, and then it's an enabler. That's why we haven't kind of called out in the as a separate sector from agriculture, etc. But I do think that it's difficult to talk about high profit margin, competitive industries without having a very strong science base. And that's why in the Future Armenian 15 goals, science technology is mentioned as a important pillar in whatever version of a future Armenia we want to build for it to be prosperous.
Thank you, Noubar. And I think the report did entail that high-tech industries is there, and I think you can speak in more details to Armen, or would you want to
No, I just
respond?
quickly like to add now. So you are right. It was, I guess, not explicit, but it was literally the foundation of the
educational sector plus the high-tech sector in terms of the analysis and in terms of enablers for both of those sectors. And I think when we share, and hopefully you'll be able to have a look at it, the much broader report, you'll see kind of how it comes in as contributor and enabler of many sectors. And by the way, the 5 that were chosen that you mentioned in terms of prioritization, those came out of the 3 lenses that we selected, but there are probably 15 other sectors that we looked into, which are also important for Armenia's development, which never showed up in this report.
By the way, if you look at the future Armenian, one of the 15 points is about science, technology, and creativity. Specifically mentioned the science, technology, one of the 15 points in future Armenian directions. Okay.
Thank you, Ruben, Noubar. So we have a question coming in online and then one more from audience. Hasmik Tortian is asking, has there been any comparative studies with other similar economies or countries, specifically on the areas that need to be developed, and share the best practices and challenges as well? Ruben, will you take this one?
We didn't make the comparison. We're trying to learn as much as we can from different countries, and we don't see the same story which can be done between the Armenia and our neighbor country like Georgia and Azerbaijan. But also we're looking at Ireland, like example. We looked at some of the, of course, Israel, and we didn't make the just simple comparison because we have a unique advantage and disadvantage, which we believe. But we also don't believe we can copy paste something. We need to look more from comparison report, looking, understanding all the elements which you can identify Armenia. But of course, we are, McKinsey did a lot of comparison report when it look at this all numbers.
Thank you, Ruben. We'll take the question from the audience, and I also wanted to encourage to ask questions in Armenian and Russian if you would prefer so. There is translation. Do you have the microphone? Can you please pass to the center the microphone? And also, who else wants to ask a question? We will have one more question from the audience.
Բարև ձեզ, ես Լուսնեն եմ Գրիգորյան, Free-News հեռուստաընկերությունից։
My name is Lucina from News TV company. Probably you know, this year Aurora Prize will take place in Venice. I would like to know, why did you decide to hold it in Venice? What kind of peculiarities will be there in award? Other part of my question, a part of a money prize will be channeled to Artsakh. Please comment.
Maybe I can, I'm happy to do a little bit of it, Ruben, you can continue. But basically, the decision we made to hold it in Venice, in an Armenian venue in Venice, one of the famous historic sites of the Armenian nation, is an important symbolic move for us, in part after having conducted the prize ceremony in Armenia in every year in its existence, with last year being a virtual event going online only. We look forward to future events taking place in Armenia with the prize, and we thought that would be a proper venue for this year's event. So I think that's something that we will experiment with. We've been asked for many, many years to consider once in a while doing it outside, and this seemed like an appropriate time to do that. We don't expect a large event. We expect a very small, but important, visible to the rest of the world event. Ruben, you may want to talk about the part of the prize money in its direction.
Yeah, what we realized, because we're learning, you know, Aurora is a quite young organization, only 5 years old, despite already achieve a lot. We also realize what is happening in the world. You're usually giving the award to people who've been handling some of the crises before, because after only you can analyze who did what. But we realized the money were very dedicated, sometimes went not the places which most needed. And we discussed it in the selection committee members about how to find the right balance when the laureate will dedicate some part of the money on the organizations or which working exactly with the areas which become most critical in this year. For example, the last year was the Artsakh, unfortunately for Armenia, but this year, definitely Afghanistan, for example, where we said it will be right for Aurora to be relevant to the, not only to past, but also today, And this is why we found a way to dedicate some part of the money, half of the money will go next year already to the, basically, I'm sure it's not decision made yet, but about Afghanistan, because what's happening in Afghanistan is, will be, maybe different decision will be, because I'm not doing this decision, but some way to create more reflection between the today's situation and where is the money going from laureates. The other point about Venice, I want to say, is also very important for all of us. Realize it's the Armenian world is much bigger and much broader. It's not only Armenia. Like McKinsey report always mentioned country. I was saying, guys, it's not only country. We have a nation around the world who are also facing some challenges. And Venice is one of the most important and critical culture heritage and religion heritage for Armenian nation under serious transformation stage, which we need to understand in some way, be responsible how we can handle. That's why it's not a link to Aurora, but we're just trying to bring the attention of the places which we can lose if we not do anything without being involved and engaged and responsible, not only for Armenia, but also from Armenian world, which is bigger. And having island in Venice or having district in Jerusalem, we can be very proud, or we can lose one day and we'll be surprisingly find what we don't have anything anymore. In Paris, Vienna, Singapore, like we've been close to losing Singapore, the church, and it was very just lucky we didn't lose it last moment.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, could you introduce yourself
yes,
first?
My name is Anna Hovsepian. I'm a PhD candidate in law and a visiting tutor at King's College London, and I'm researching on artificial intelligence, law and society. Thank you very much for such a wonderful event, such an important one. The question that I have, and if you don't mind, I'll just read. So yesterday in his talk at Skolkovo, Noubar mentioned that he is a Darwinist, which is understandable, and I do share his perspective on it. But as a result, we have seen now a new wave of Armenians wanting to leave the country because they do not feel safe here. And that is also about the physical security as well right now, what we see, and not only financial. And I would have assumed that the instinct of survival is very appropriate and might be the reason. And my question is the following: as the military protection also plays an important role for guaranteeing both security of the population, but also to allow investors not to be scared to bring money and to, for example, launching a biotech laboratory here in Armenia. Now it seems we have this very weird paradox. To have a good military, we need money, and to have money, we need investors not to be scared to come here. And I was wondering, what are your thoughts on it? What is the possible solution for that? And do you in any way agree with my observation? And the second part of the question, not relative to the first one, but do you think that in any way the patriarchal structure of our community, and that is the role of women that we have seen so far, is one of the reasons that we have been failing to make good progress in our society?
Ruben, do you want to go or do you want me to go first?
You go first part, I go second part. Let's do it because we have a limit of time. Maybe take the second part.
Okay. Well, look, I think you're asking a very appropriate question, and it illustrates the degree to which these problems cannot be solved separately. And it makes to me the argument for why we really do need to be able to debate, choose, describe a destination, many destinations, but of them choose one that drives what we do for the next 20 years, so that we could say, okay, by this year, we have to get to a certain level of economic capability so that we can then build up our military and our security system enough such that over that period of time, we can reach an end goal. Because if we wait for security to arrive before we do economic development, it's going to be difficult. And the last 30 years proved that. We had at least a semblance of security or imaginary security, but in reality, we didn't really do economic development the way we should. And then vice versa, if we say first let's get economics development and then we'll worry about the military. So I think that makes for an argument that there needs to be a coordinated vision that drives our actions. And by the way, I know one of the things I think we all have to realize is that we elect governments to rule the day, to rule in that period. And of course, that period will dictate what we may become. But unfortunately, the electorate also has to demand from the rulers a strong commitment to a clear future. Because if the electorate does not, it's difficult to win elections by caring about something that the people don't care about, which is the future. And so I think there's a level of education and discussion that we have to have. And let me just say one other thing, since we may be running out of time. You know, we've talked a lot about the future, and again, there's an interesting concept. You know, Armenians have lots of dreams, but we need imagination. Dreams are what you have when you're asleep, and dreams kind of are entertaining, but imagination is what you have when you're awake. And you can actually interact with your imagination, influence it, change it, debate it. And I think that that imagination, which can then inspire a level of confidence, is what we have to allow. And to that end, by the way, let me just say a little bit my view, Ruben, you can amplify on the second question about women. I actually think that women in our current society are undergoing a form of emigration themselves, because they have been not participating in many aspects of societal life, and suddenly they are, as new immigrants into all aspects of life, beginning to face the challenges, fight back, and earn their right to belong and to be proper native citizens, as they should always have been. And I think that therefore there's more hope, drive, and conviction that I expect to come from women than from men, who I liken to the natives in a land that people want to immigrate to, who only have things to lose in their mind, lose influence, lose their monopoly on the issue. So look, I absolutely feel that if we will be able to have an extra impetus to this drive towards a stronger future, if women are given the right voice and encouraged to find an equal, or if competitively superior, then a superior place in many aspects of what we're doing. That's my firm belief.
Very briefly, just a few words about security. All our surveys showing the number one, number two, number three priorities of security. But at the same time, if you look at the government program, if you look what is going in our society, somebody needs to solve this problem. Investors will come, you will see like in Israel, where the entire nation want to build efficient state of Armenia. And the entire nation will show commitment to preserve some part of comfort life and to go serve in army, not only by helping now saying it will be professional army. What it means professional army? We'll hire Swiss soldiers to serve, or who will be work for us? It will be Armenians, will be just a small group of people who will, and what will we? We'll sit again in a cafe and restaurant during the war and discuss about how we're losing or winning something. So in my view, the investors will invest when they will see commitment from elite, from the country and nation who lives here, from diaspora will move here. This is why one of our target goals is 50,000 families coming back to Armenia saying, we want to build Armenia. We want to build together with Armenians who live in Armenia, new Armenia. And we'll commit, we're talking about diaspora Armenian who lives outside Armenia will want to vote. And it was not discussed in the current government program, but we need to talk. Do we want to sing up the people who live outside of Armenia to vote? We need to serve in army. It will be volunteers. It will be different type of, maybe it was 6 months contract, it will be 2 years contract, it will be different type of, but you cannot talk about security and not be ready yourself to put your life or your commitment under this important issue if you really want to be Armenian, you want to live in Armenia, in my view. Which is why investors will come, only will see commitment from the nation to build strong country, strong nation. And about women, Noubar said absolutely right, I don't want to repeat it. I'm very strongly believe this is the big changes in Armenian society happening in the last 20 years. In the 90s it started. In the Soviet time, Armenian men was working and going to the job, whatever, finding the money and bringing, it was model which everybody accepted. In the 90s changed everything. And I think it's this last 20 years, for many reasons, brings some new reality, which is not accepted yet by structure of society, by traditions, by behavior, which will be changed. And so we will support our candidate in Dilijan. By the way, it's interesting to see what will happen in Dilijan. The head of community center, the woman from Dilijan, she's here, Armenia, was running this community center for 800 kids from Dilijan, and now running against 2 men to become the head of the municipality of Dilijan. And it's great, because I believe you need to become more proactive, but not only proactive to become leading the nation or leading the country, leading the Marat Gerasimyan here is right, also running the party, which I'm happy to see is more and more women with the right attitude, with the right values, with the right behavior, trying to put their lives under something important. But the other part of it is also talk with your second part, the man, saying what you behave is unacceptable. How you behave, what you're talking in the TV, how you communicate, how you believe the fighting in the parliament and showing what you are being 50 years old or 60 years old and like kids in a yard fighting who is stronger by physical is a joke. And the woman needs to prepare and herself to be not only active by managing or something, but also sending the signals to the society saying, well, this is unacceptable, the way how we behave, the men. And this is very important. That's why we strongly believe this will be very important transformation change in our society. The weight of the women in our overall life will be changed, I'm sure.
Thank you. I'll read a question coming from an online viewer, and then we'll move to the audience again. So Stephanie, we have another 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yes. Stephanie Kundakjan is asking, Armenia is becoming more linguistically diverse despite efforts to consolidate the Armenian language. How do you envision supporting this diversity so that it becomes a point of strength, not rancor?
Yeah, but I think we have an interesting situation. We're talking about engaging diaspora to Armenian world. Now I want to ask you a question. From 6 to 7, nobody knows how many are Armenians. 75% or don't speak Armenian or cannot write or read in Armenian. How we want to engage with people to Armenian world if they cannot read and write and pass exams? We're really talking seriously about this. So it's unavoidable what we need to put the same way like in Holland, like in other countries, in Switzerland and Belgium, and we can talk about many other countries, the way with the Russian and English will become part of the official languages to our country. Which doesn't mean we need to forget about Armenia. We need to have a special fund to support Armenian language development and sacrifice. We need to put serious resources to support Armenian language and Western Armenian, Grabar, by the way. We're losing Grabar. It's 100 people, maybe less, know Grabar now. We need to support Grabar. But it's a two different tasks. You cannot preserve your language, just not allowing to other languages be part of your day-to-day life. That's why, in my view, there is a two different tasks. They link to each other. We need to go in parallel, but we need to understand, yes, we need to invest serious money to support Armenian language and to keep Armenian language alive and make Armenian language one of our biggest heritage and our biggest commitment when we have our own alphabet. But at the same time, we need to go to the nation who speaks three languages. Three languages minimum. It was normal for Armenians. By the way, go Lebanon, Armenians speak 5 languages. Now we cannot speak 2 languages. We lost Russian, we don't speak English, and we cannot speak Armenian normally. It's not, by the way, it's funny. We talked about Armenian language was supported the last 20 years, and we lost other languages, but we didn't speak good Armenian either.
Thank you, Ruben. The question from the audience. Who has the microphone? Bella? Yes, please.
Ես Գալումյան Արամայիսն եմ, բժիշկ եմ մասնագիտությամբ, աշխատում եւ ապրում եմ Հայաստանում.
I am Aramais Galuman, a medical doctor, live and work in Armenia. As you see, doctors are active in the future Armenian movement, and that's only natural. My question pertains to the ideology of the Armenian. Whether the country, the state that we want to create, our future that is, should not form a common pan-Armenian mindset. Just programs and projects. Starting from programs, is it the right point of departure, or should we first form a common Armenian mindset? Yes, we do want to have a nation state like the Jews did once. They came, they brought about this ideology and pursued the objectives. And I'm not only talking about people living in Armenia, but to the Armenians around the world. And what's the role of the Armenian church in this, in your opinion?
I can go first. Okay. You're asking a very difficult question, not because it's only a question to us, it's a question to many nationalities. And I just want to remind all of us, we talk about Armenian nation, like what nationalities become core identity element only 200 years ago. Before, it was a religion. Are you a Protestant? Are you a Catholic? It was more important compared what your nationality is. In Napoleon time, you become clear with nationality. That's why, and what is nationality? By blood? By, what is the, why, like I said, Noubar said, Armenian by choice. Is Yazidi who lives in Armenia is Armenian? Armenian citizen? What do you think? Are you believe that only Armenians need to live in Armenia? And again, this is why we're talking about Armenian nation values and Armenian country values. We need to very clearly define what we are talking first. Second, I think we are talking about some myths. Today, we are very proud of our Armenian church, but we are first Christian country. I'm sorry there's some non-Armenian people sitting, but I will be very blind and honest. 90% Armenians, or whatever numbers, but huge, don't know, not Armenian, not following Armenian religion rules. They're not going to the churches. They don't know Hail Mary. There are Yerevan churches 10 times less compared, not 15 times less, but we need it if we're going Sunday to churches. We're listening to music which is not Armenian. It's Mugham and Arab and Turkish music in Yerevan, and we're proud saying it's Armenian music. This is why we need to define, and the families where we're sending the gender abortion of the women, and then 12,000 girls was not born. We're second after India by gender abortion, and this is we are proud about this. But this is Armenian our traditions. We are, I think, mixed with ourselves who we are by language, because we're really going to say how we keep our language, how we keep our family values, and how we keep our church, where most of people don't trust Catholicos, and we have a situation where most of the people don't go into churches. We have a serious, I think, important discussion. What do you mean about high values and Armenian nation issues, which is, again, very important. I mean, when you're right, we need to discuss, we need to find this by having maybe elite and special debate about it. But I think one of the things which I always see is how people use this rhetorics to just cover not willingness to change and not to look what the real life is around us. So I think the nationality issue, especially with the current world where we're going, is becoming instinct topic for not only for us, for many nations. I'm sure, for example, in Singapore is a big challenge because we don't have a nationality at all. Or in Belgium, where is the Flemish and French two communities where citizens of Belgium, but we have or you have Israel, where is, by the way, in Israel is a serious challenge. Because I will tell you, in 10 years' time or 20 years' time, will be more Arab people who live in Israel compared you're Jewish, and at the same time, it's a Jewish state, with only Jewish. Again, you have a very, very complicated challenges everywhere. And this is and how in France, Arab people not absorbing the French culture, not becoming part of the French DNA, they didn't get it. So I think it's a good point, but it's a little bit speculation. We need to be careful how we use, and we need to come back about what is the nationality issue for us and how we keep these values and how we develop this and not losing.
Yeah, maybe I'll just say very briefly one quick thing. I know that was a lot has been said, but I think that this is an important issue and it should be tackled in parallel. I think first agreeing on a national ideology is yet another way in which the future will not be planned and worked upon, because whether we don't agree or there is no basis to agree, what happens in these things, I would say, is that different people, and I would invite you, since you're thinking about this, to enter into that discussion, will propose their own view, their own set of values and ideals that represent what it is to be a future Armenian. And that debate will be like an evolutionary process very much a competition of thought, that if there is a set of thoughts, maybe sometimes borrowing from each other, that begin to shape something that many people find attractive, whether you call that a political platform or you call that a national ideology, at the end of the day, it will gain support, and that's an emergent process. I don't think agreeing on that first will be possible, and I'd also argue desirable. But if I may, and I have no idea if this is appropriate from a format standpoint, I know that Eric, who's on stage and who's been quiet, may have views on this particular topic. I don't know if he's willing to share them, but I'd love to hear his view on, in general, when people have done these types of things, is a national ideology a requisite for a future set of activities, and where does that fit into the overall agenda?
Thank you. To have absolute consensus on something like that is absolutely not realistic or even desirable. But I think the concept of a new Armenian, I think, is vitally important. And the new Armenian needs to be a completely different kind of person. The new Armenian needs to be stoic. The new Armenian should only be proud of what we accomplished now while understanding our past. A new Armenian needs to has to have a new conception of patriotism that isn't in the traditional one. Everybody who builds a lab, everybody who starts a business, everybody who educates someone, is a patriot. So we need to have a new conception of what that means, but it is best not to define it exactly because, as they say in Armenian, it's just a reason for people to fight each other. And you can't wait to reach consensus on matters like that. I think that's almost a matter of faith. But I think this concept of we need to rethink everything, and we need to challenge ourselves, and we need to not tell ourselves fairy tales. We need to understand our failures. We need to not blame other people. We need to look reality straight in the face and not blink. I think that's the new Armenian, more than anything else.
Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, everyone. I know we still have a lot of questions, and I think we will take the time after the event as well. But as you can see, there is so much that has to be discussed, done, realized to make sure that we can really try to bring the change. Ruben?
No, before we finish, I just want to say thank you for organizing this all, and I thank you for everyone to come and be part of this. And I want to say I've been very proud to have friends and partners together with my own family to do what we did last 20 years. I don't regret at all any moment what I've been doing, despite all the challenges, all the difficulties on execution of 700 projects and more in Armenia and outside of Armenia, and we try to do our best. And I believe, despite all the challenges we talk, despite all the problems what we are facing, we have a unique opportunity to really build our future ourselves. And I agree with Noubar, it's only we can take responsibility for future Armenia and Armenian by choice, doing something which we believe is important for our heart, but also doing it professionally and doing it by really thinking not only about ourselves, but also about the world, because we are part of the world. We cannot be just looking at ourselves independent from what's happening around us. And I just want to say again, I'm a strong believer that collegial work together, and I'm a strong believer that only together we can change the future. Thank you. And I hope we can do more things.
Thank you. Thank you, Noubar. Do you want to maybe say the last word as well before we close?
Well, I'm happy to say a brief comment. Just in the sentiment I take away from today is that I think there's a lot of consensus that we really do need to search our souls deeply and find the energy and the inspiration to do what we need to do. I think one thing Eric was saying is that we need to redefine what an Armenian is. I agree with that. And one of the things we have to do as part of that is to view ourselves as also Armenian, not only Armenian, because there is no reason to have to choose to be Armenian or not. If Armenian is a very big part of our life, we can also be Armenian, we could also be a doctor, we can also be part of a different group, etc. So let's define Armenian as something we all want to be. I'm happy that when I met Ruben 20 years ago and it affected a very large portion of what I've worked on, that he was also Armenian. He might not have been also Armenian, in which case I wouldn't have met him because he probably wouldn't have come to Harvard and he probably wouldn't have had the interests he had. And so I think we just have to rebuild this network and believe, for the sake of the 5-year-olds today, we have to believe in our future. And if we don't, then we will betray them again, as Eric said. So that would be my final thought.
Thank you, Noubar. And I think we will close with the video that we have shown in the beginning because the audience asked to show it once again, and then we will be, we can continue to the networking. Thank you, everyone.
Պետք է գնա Հայաստանն առաջիկա 15 տարիներին։ Այս հարցի վերաբերյալ Հայաստան 2020 ծրագրի կազմակերպիչները կարծես եկել են ընդհանուր հայտարարի։
Ուղիղ 1 տարի առաջ աշխարհի տարբեր երկրներում ապրող հաջողակ հայ գիտնականներ ու գործարարներ որոշեցին ուրվագծել այն Հայաստանը, որտեղ կուզենային ապրել 20 տարի անց։ Կարծիքները տարբեր էին, մոտեցումները հակասական։ Սակայն ակնհայտ էր, որ անհնար է մշակել Հայաստանի զարգացման իրատեսական ռազմավարություն, անտեսելով ազգային բոլոր յուրահատկությունները։ Այդ թվում սփռվածությունը ամբողջ աշխարհում։ Նրանք վստահ են, որ Հայաստանի զարգացման ճիշտ ուղեցույց ընտրելու եւ դրան հավատարիմ մնալու դեպքում նույն 21-րդ դարի դասագրքերը արդեն կարող են պատմել զարգացման հայկական առասպելի մասին։ Աշխարհի ամենահայտնի մարքեթինգային խորհրդատվական ընկերության McKinsey-ի տնօրենը սակայն վստահ է, որ ցանկացած նպատակի հնարավոր է հասնել, եթե գիտես ուր ես գնում։
Ուրախ եք ողջունեց ես Նաթևեր ճոպանով։
մեր բոսը ներկա 5 տարեկան, 6 տարեկան երեխաներ են եւ միշտ եղել են։
Ես ասարամ Մարիամ եմ, ես որ դառնամ արդեն մեծ, ես կդառնամ Հայաստանի կամ բժիշկը, կամ պրեզիդենտը։